Salt Bae used to be the most popular person on social media, but now everyone makes fun of him. Messi turned him down at the World Cup, and security stopped him at the door of the Champions League after-party. The image of a star who used to be adored around the world is now surrounded by criticism. People see him online as a sign of fake fame. In real life, his chain of restaurants, which was once seen as the height of luxury, is slowly falling apart. 5 of the 7 US sites are no longer open. In London, earnings have dropped by more than 30%, and Beverly Hills, which used to be a source of pride, has closed for good. At the heart of it all are a lot of disagreements. Bills that are more than a car's worth, claims that the workplace is like the Hunger Games, or political choices that were made at the wrong time and have turned off some of the most profitable markets. That being said, the big question is what made a 36-second salt sprinkling moment become a global joke that spread so far. Why has a famed fashion leader who DiCaprio, Beckham, and Bruno Mars all wanted become a joke on the stage he built? What facts do people still need to hear? This video will show you everything. You will see the whole picture, not just the bits and pieces that the media report. You will see how money, fame, and mental health are weighed against each other, as well as the price of keeping up a shiny front that is hollow on the inside. In this video, you will find out all about the events, choices, and reasons that led to this chain of drama. When you look at the current falls and scandals, it's easy to think that this was always going to happen. But we need to go back to the beginning to understand why that golden glow broke so quickly. A small kitchen in Istanbul where a poor butcher named Nusret Gökçe put on a show with his skills. In 2017, a 36-second video of him sprinkle salt got over 16 million views in just a few days. It turned him from an unknown to a global joke, and in an instant, his Instagram went from having no followers to having millions of followers. Even Cristiano Ronaldo and David Beckham, who are some of the biggest stars in the world, came to Nusret. The man who is truly master of his image sat down at his table, ate a steak covered in gold, and smiled for the cameras. Salt Bae sold more than just food. He sold experiences. Almost every meal was a show, and the bills could go up to at least $140,000. After being praised all over the world for years, Salt Bae's golden glow started to fade because of the thing that made him famous in the first place: his need to be the center of attention everywhere he went. The height of wealth not only built his brand, but it also gave him the idea that fame could open any door. That's what led to the terrible moment at the 2022 World Cup, the truth. After the final game, Salt Bae rushed onto the field as if they were not there and tried to take pictures with the players and take the prize from their hands. A huge number of cameras caught this activity right away. Even though Messi is usually very cool, he avoided him with a cold, angry look, and so did his teammates. This moment wasn't just gross, it was also a clear attempt to get attention by using the competition to go viral. Messi's fans quickly took to social media to respond with mean comments and jokes, and Salt Bae's obvious happiness made the whole thing even funnier. Not only did Salt Bae's action offend millions of viewers, it also caused an instant and fierce backlash from football fans. What started out as a funny moment for laugh quickly turned into a major problem with safety and control of the field. FIFA stepped in right away. An internal investigation was started, and Salt Bae was told he couldn't go to any official sports events. He went from being a familiar face at major global events to being a persona non grata. There were no more fancy parties, cameras, or flashing lights to greet him. There was only the image of a man standing on the field and forcing a smile even though he knew his golden aura was disappearing. According to a statement from the governing body, FIFA has looked into how some people got on the field without permission after the closing ceremony at Lusail Stadium on December 18. The right steps will be taken internally. This was a big change. It marked the change from a well-liked and respected person to a worldwide joke. But it's not just this event that stands out. It was the unavoidable result of a long string of choices. How he ran his business, the choices he made about how he looked, and his relationships with money, power, and fame. Do you think that Salt Bae's image would stay the same after the fall at the 2022 World Cup? Not at all. The looks on the field were just the start. Another question came up when the stage lights went down. Without moments that go global, what does he really have left? At this point, people who used to back him, from online groups to famous people, started to speak out. This is like having a wedding crash or someone say, "I want a picture with you," even though you want a party with your family and friends, right? Look, this is a big time for the team. After that, it looked like FIFA was looking into what happened and how it happened. Guys, it looks like the calls are coming from inside the house because this Salt Bae guy is supposedly very friendly with Gianni Infantino, the founder of FIFA. The community was furious and spoke out on a number of different channels. This guy is like a kid who wants to blow out someone else's party candles. What does he have to do there? He needs to be in the kitchen cooking. The criticism came from many places, like news sources and famous people. A lot of famous people who used to happily stand for pictures with Salt Bae have now publicly distanced themselves from him. Some have even made fun of how he turned meals into silly performances. While on social media, some football stars made it seem like they were telling the man behind the salt sprinkle that fame can't replace respect. The fame that helped him get where he was now turned its back on him. When I was there, I tried that burger with everyone. Is ridiculously pricey. When doubt set in, the cracks became more clear. Behind the sparkling glass doors of Nusret, which used to be seen as a high-class stage, strange stories come out. Bills that made everyone scratch their heads. A meal with a few pieces of steak that are dressed in gold costs as much as a car. The $140,000 number was no longer a sign of wealth, it was now a sign of pointless spending. Hey, did you know that the Salt Bae guy from the joke has a chain of restaurants? How much do they cost? When you don't eat meat but pay $31,000 to see Salt Bae. That comes to about $8,500 US. $8,500 to eat at a place with memes? What's next? Accident Girl is going to open a taco shop, right? Alien guys have a barbecue? Is it Kermit's House of Tea? This is not okay for me to do. It's funny because that's not even the real Salt Bae. He hires people who look like him to work in different places. That's Paprika Bae, not Salt Bae. The money spent no longer bought an event, but a social media illusion that would only last for a short time. It felt like they were being used and abused when what they used to call wealth was now shown. During this wave, Salt Bae started to answer. Good quality never costs a lot. But, as you might expect, people had very different opinions. It's rude to show this off when people all over the world are hungry. What a jerk. Even though someone wrote in a mocking way, "You're right. This is pricey, but quality never costs a lot." The shocking stories from inside were even more shocking than the outrageous prices that made customers feel cheated right there at the table. Because there was more than just shiny metal on each gold-plated steak. There was also sweat, effort, and stories from past employees that haven't been told. People who used to stand behind the stove fires started talking about their own experiences. People who worked there said it was like being in the Hunger Games, because workers never knew if they'd be fired during their shift. According to some past employees, it was a tough place to work. Reports said that managers were not giving out tips, that workers were working late into the night without getting paid extra, and that papers were even being taken away. These details have not been checked by a third party, but they add to the negative perception of the brand. Meanwhile, it was found that some restaurant locations broke rules about food safety or tried to cut costs so much that customers had to eat outside in the cold. These events were very different from what gold-plated luxury promised. All of this shows a different picture of a kingdom that looks great on the outside but is hollow on the inside. A lot of health and nutrition experts agree that highly processed foods are bad for you, but we're seeing something strange in the meat eaters group that I needed to share with you. This is something I think you'll really like. After talking it over, some researchers came up with this way to rate or group ultra-processed foods. The Ministry of Health said in a statement that they would look into this situation. People who work at the restaurant did not reply right away to requests for comment. The complaints, claims, and huge bills that were going around on social media spread very quickly and set off a chain reaction. Nusret went from being a fancy place for the rich to go on the slide. Reports said that by July 2025, 5 of the 7 Nusret stores in the US had to close. This included the Beverly Hills store, which had been seen as the brand's flagship and a sign of its high status. It shut down for good in June 2025. Over 30% less money was made in London, which was a clear sign that people were leaving. Propel, a company that studies the business world, said that sales at Nusret in Knightsbridge dropped by 31% by the end of last year, reaching just £180,000 a week in one of London's busiest and richest areas. So, the empire, which was once covered in gold and thought to be unbreakable, showed its clear cracks. No longer a fancy place to check in or a safe haven for celebrities. In its place, there are news stories about falling profits, closings, and the cold emptiness of places that used to be bright with lights. These numbers aren't just for business. They show that a harsh fact is true. When trust is broken, even money and fame, which were once seen as Salt Bay's biggest strengths, can't save an empire that is falling apart. The current crisis' string of closings is not happening by chance. They're the result of a crack that was there before there was a crack. The crack didn't come from the stake itself, but from the person Salt Bay decided to align with. Do you remember the event from 2018? At that point, Venezuela was going through the worst economic collapse of the decade. The value of the local currency dropped by more than 1 million times. A lot of people had to wait in line for hours just to buy a few loaves of bread, and many families couldn't afford to give their kids milk. There was a video of Salt Bay serving President Nicolas Maduro and his wife a steak on a gold platter right then. A lot of foreign news outlets say that this big difference made people angry during Venezuela's crisis. In this way, the scandals of 2018 left a wound that was tough to heal. To be fair, though, there is one truth that stands out among all the complaints. Salt Bay came out of the kitchen, not the office. Many people who worked with him at the bar still remember a rhythm. He cut with the grain of the meat and flicked the salt shaker with his hand like it was second nature. The thing that made a butcher famous was his love for his job. It didn't go away just because people were angry about it. But that love changed when it got too involved with money and fame for too long. The name used to be based on a love of the kitchen, but over time, that love turned into a love of the stage. More people, brighter lights, and every meal having to be a show. A lot of money and fame came in, and the brand's life, which was supported by customer trust and the team's strength, was pushed to its limits. After that, every decision was about how to act. Not only did the food have to taste good, it had to look good enough for the camera. A moment had to be more than just polite, it had to be something that could be shared. At this point, the moves that had been praised before started to fall apart. Because he loved the craft so much, he felt comfortable going to places where a lot of people were. But when the line between public and private space became fuzzy, every move had the potential to cross lines. So, on those intense football nights when all eyes were on the trophy and the stars, the famous chef's showing, even though he thought the crowd still loved him, was seen as an interruption of a moment that wasn't his. The question for the next part comes up now. People love being on stage more than they love cooking. What's outside the walls of the Champions League 2025, where the lights are brightest but it's also the coldest for those who aren't invited? After getting into a lot of trouble, starting with the time he walked into the World Cup 2022 trophy ceremony and continuing with restaurant scandals involving shocking bills and claims from former employees, Salt Bay's reputation as the golden chef that everyone wants has faded. He used to be famous enough to be compared to heads of state, sports stars, and high society galas, but now people are skeptical and tired of hearing about him. His glamorous world is slowly closing its door, but Salt Bay might not even be aware of it. He kept showing up at big events and still liked being in front of the cameras, as if his great past had never happened. And it was this difference between what he thought he still had and how people saw him that led to the next bad thing. In June 2025, Salt Bay showed up again at the Champions League after-party. But unlike the other times, when he was greeted with red carpets, no one hugged him this time. A movie quickly went around the world. Security stopped Salt Bay from going into the VIP area, which was full of players and official guests. No longer did cameras follow Salt Sprinkle around everywhere he went. Instead, there was a weird scene where a man who used to be in charge of the stage was pushed out in front of the crowd. He quickly spoke out to defend himself, saying that all he wanted to do was meet friends and not break any rules. But people on social media don't have time for explanations. People on Twitter and TikTok made fun of the picture of the man who was standing at the door and made jokes about it. For the crowd, being blocked at that time wasn't just something that security did all the time. It stood for something else. It wasn't enough to be famous to get things done anymore. He said he was only there to meet fans, even though there were reports that he had been kicked out of the event. He said it's not true what people are saying on social media that Nusret was kicked out. There wasn't really a party going on there. I wasn't even asked to go to such an event. When I walked by, I saw someone acting strangely in the back, which made it look like something had happened. But the story that I was kicked out is not true at all. My good name is being harmed. Headlines around the world, from The Sun to diarioas and news.com.au, all said the same thing: the most embarrassing fall. The same news sources that used to run pictures of him with Beckham, DiCaprio, or Messi have changed how they talk about him because they see this as clear proof that he is losing power. Salt Bae could still get close to the golden trophy at the 2022 World Cup, but Messi would stare him down. This time, the gap was even bigger. People in the game turned their backs on him, and the VIP door shut in his face. That moment was like a terrible allegory. Salt Bae used to be an icon who was called to all the fancy dinners, but now he was just out of the picture. And that was probably worse for a business that loved the attention than any failed bill. Once upon a time, the golden glow of steak was enough to hide all flaws. But in the end, it could only hide one truth. That kingdom was built on a social media hit that went viral, not on quality that would last. It was Salt Bae who made a sprinkle of salt into a worldwide brand. Now she is a standard example of an empty viral. Something that gets bigger like a straw fire and goes away when people look away. There is another story behind the mean jokes and sarcastic headlines, though. The story of a poor butcher who slowly came to know the world and then drowned in the halo he made. It might not just be a lesson about money, fame, or how to look good on the outside. It also serves as a warning that behind the flash, there is still a person who makes mistakes, gets carried away, and gets lost sometimes. The last question is still open. Is Salt Bae the one who seized the chance right away, or was he just a man who made himself stuck in a bright light? It's possible that the answer lies in how each of us reads this story.